Yu-Gi-Oh! Mint.com is now TradingCardMint.com. Please check out their selection of over 20,000 cards with prices cheaper than TCG Player.
All right. What is up, YouTube M40? We're going to be doing my standard list for the police that I got second with at the local in Ohio. I was there for the 200th YCS last weekend. Friday night they had their Vanguard locals, so I figured I would drop in, see what was good, and get the chance to kind of test the waters, because it's not that standard's not my preferred format, but it definitely takes going to an area with a lot more standard in it to want to play the deck. So guys, please check out our friends at TradingCardMint.com down below in the description. Rumor has it if you enter MCOL40 on checkout, you will save yourselves a little bit of money. So it's always kind of good to know that Robbie's looking out for you, and you guys getting very good opportunity to do just that. So anyway, we were at Card Academy this past weekend, and this deck, I don't know how to play against Tachikaze. Tachi was my last round in Swiss. I ended up losing to it. Not exactly too sure how to go about that matchup, because they're just kind of aggro, and it's like, I feel like you need to be aggro back. You don't even really have the option to kind of control their rear guards. It's just, it kind of sucks, honestly. They just kind of outpower this deck, so it's kind of weird. But this is based still on the old OCG deck. I don't think anything's changed since the last time I profiled standard D-Police, because I don't think there's really been anything to really change. So, quick matchup breakdown though, before I get into this. Round one was against D-Police. We played the mirror match. I played 8 draw triggers, he played 6. My 8 came in clutch. The theory with the higher count for draw triggers is on the defense, as you're taking the damage, 10k boost and draw a card is insane. I value that so much more than I do the crit triggers. And honestly, this guy's getting himself a crit when he swings. So he's doing his job to force the opponent to guard this. So I do like that. Round 2 was against OTT. Early quick aggro with these guys really helps. And then round 3 was, I did the same thing. I actually played against Spike Brothers. Now, Spike Brothers generate a lot of advantage very quickly, but if you control the rear guards and you aggro them, those are two words that shouldn't go together. This card against Spike Brothers, game 1 and game 3, I drew 2 or 3 of these, so I just unloaded them on the field, and at grade 2 I said counterblast 1, double my Vanguard's power. You don't really understand just aggro until you're slamming your opponent in the face at grade 2. Your opponent's looking at their hand going, huh, 20k, do I guard or do I not guard? So kind of some interesting things that you can do. I mean, especially if you're getting flooded with draw triggers. So anyway, play 4 copies of this guy. Honestly, this deck wants to go first. Being able to go first, do this, pressure your opponent with a force marker or something to that degree, you should be in a position to start winning. The fact that this card is ridiculous. Also, the fact that this deck is just counterblast 1, gain quad drive. Like, I don't know who thought that was inherently fair in the designing stages of making this deck, but it's so nuts. Also, it kind of sucks when you don't open this. I can tell you that I have quite a few number of games where we had to be on this guy, and it does cause a few issues in the grand scheme of things. So just make sure that you try to get onto your right Vanguard, or you're going to have an incredibly bad time when playing this deck. So there is that. And then we play 4 copies of Counterblast 1 Quad Drive. I don't think people understand the pressure that this card grants to you. On ride, it gives the whole front row 10k. I don't think people paid attention to that effect, or and then you know, when he rewrites, he gets 10k for himself, and then the whole front row, you know, will trigger and get the 10k as well. So he gives himself 20k. I think people just kind of see this card as not as a threat. I think everybody looks at this and is like, oh no, like this. The 2 crits threatening, but when you look at this card, you have to understand that giving that extra 10k to something like this actually can kill your opponent. So this card does cause blowout scenarios, and especially like in the mirror, I learned like, going first is just so valuable. Also, like, if your opponent gets stuck on this, it's not an impossible situation to play out, but it can be much harder than I think people want to grant or give it credit for. 3 copies of this. So I was debating on cutting this for an additional copy of this and playing 11 grade 2s. The only one scenario that this came up that was really bad was when I almost had to ride this. Now, it's not impossible to come back from that situation, but I mean, you gain twin drive, so at least you can kind of start climbing the ladder a little bit. It kind of sucks because in that scenario you can't G-assist to get a better grade 3. So that would probably be one change I would consider making at this current point in time. But the 3, you kind of just toss this up in the front row and watch your opponent kind of come swinging at it. They have to answer this card because, especially if you're going into the Dayusha next turn, they don't have enough guard to start guarding these things when they're swinging in for, 28. Like, it starts to become an issue. So this card grants too much pressure for what it is. Now, grade 2s, playing 4 copies of Dybird. This is mandatory. I don't know why you'd be playing any less than this. The fact that this card literally just... It's also not restricted to grade 3. So, if in some world you're like me and you're borrowing your grade 2 Vanguard, sometimes making 20 into 30 is not bad. Oh man, I can't believe that actually happened. Not once, but twice, actually. But 10k on drop, it's a super booster, or super attacker, swinging in for 30 after you drop the Dayusha restander. But outside of that, I mean, you need it. Now, something I know just came in clutch. I know a lot of you guys are going to disagree with me on this. Still, even on the first deck profile, everybody did. This card is nuts. I don't care if it's 9k. I care that this is a fucking 15k interceptor or 15k on Guardian Circle. The amount of times that you can play Reckless with this deck, that's actually the thing I like about Miracle Dandy. I can play, I can toss out my draw triggers, I cannot care. As long as I have this as a 15k shield for no reason. So I can play a little bit more aggressively and not so much get punished for it, but my deck does have options to kind of recover from it. So there's that. And then 2 copies of this. The reason why I said I wanted 3 of this was just because of that increased shield value. Like, 10k is big for shield value. It doesn't matter if it has an effect or not, but I can, once again, you can toss this out in the front row, it becomes a threat. Same thing with this. Toss it out in the front row with a booster, your opponent has to answer this because it's 15k. Guard. Same thing with this. Like, extra shield value is not something that your opponent can not let sit around for a while. Now, grade 1 ratios, I'm pretty set in my ways on. 4 copies of Laurel. I know some people don't like 4, especially in Standard, but there's just something about his pressure. Like, I want to see it. It sucks he's 6k, but you know what? It's fine. We're risking him tapping him sideways. We play 4 copies of this. This is mandatory. I don't see why you would argue against that. 2 copies of this. Once again, forcing the opponent to throw down multiple cards to guard, at least in a situation that they might only be calling a perfect shield, is really good. Yeah, fucking straight value of 8k. And then we're playing 2 copies of this. Was this important? Yes and no. There were a lot of games where I felt my opponents... They had interceptors, and this card really hurts when you... I guess you're playing the mirror and your opponent's playing more heavy stuff like this. And I definitely found that out game 1. You can't really... You have to change your plan in the mirror when they have Dilander on the field, because you can't toss these out recklessly. You need to keep them in the hand because you can't intercept. So that was something I felt was kind of interesting. That's all I need for grade 1s there. So, starters... pretty self-explanatory for starter. Playing 8 draw triggers. I think it's... the only thing I would want to possibly change is I was considering going to 5 crit with 7 draw, but that almost feels incorrect. Just, you need to... 1, you need to be able to get to Dayusha. You don't have a formal way of searching it. 2, the defense value you get off of this is actually insane to me. and then just being able to have slight pressure built into the deck seems fair, at least in my opinion. So, but those would probably be the only two changes I would consider. I wouldn't mind 7 draws, 5 crits. I could probably still get away with it, honestly. So guys, that is all I have for this deck profile. Please check out tradingcardmint.com down below in the description. And, well guys, I am out. Later.